Himself by Alice Guerin Crist, 1876 to 1941. Last night, when I was listening alone to wind and rain, he took the chair beside me, himself come home again. His kind blue eyes were smiling beneath his thatch of grey. He laid his hand on my hand, the old sweetheartin way. I pressed my cheek upon it, remembering bitterly the times he faced his daily toil without one smile from me. And yet his meals were always good, his clothes well kept and clean. The neighbours sure will tell you the splendid wife I've been. But in life's stress and struggle, we somehow grew apart. You know these Irish mothers, 'tis the childer has their heart. And he grew grim and close-lipped, and harder day by day, poor man, too tired for laughter, too worried to be gay. But how his care enclosed us, for all he was so grim, the very rafters of our home were cut and laid by him. And I that might have cheered him, the bitter words I said, O God, that we remember only when they are dead. But now my arms were round him, the room seemed full of flowers, and youth came back and sunshine, that glorious time was ours. The firelight flamed and flickered, the embers fell apart. I woke to empty silence, with sorrow at my heart. The wild winds brought the morning, the dawn was red and chill, and himself was lying sleeping in the graveyard on the hill. So this is a poem by Alice Guerin Crist. She is an Australian poet. She was actually born in Ireland, but when she was 2 years old, her family migrated to Queensland, and her father was a rural schoolmaster. So I can imagine what rural Queensland must have been like in the 1880s, 1890s, 1900s. So she is Australian, but she still maintains this an Irish feeling, an Irish Australian, and I think that's probably how you would describe her. So himself, what's this about? Well, this is about a widow, and she's at home and she's quite old, and her husband is dead, and he's been dead for some time, and she's remembering, she's thinking back, and she's thinking about him. And he comes to her, or he comes in her visions, in her imagination, and she regrets not treating him better during life, not being more understanding and more caring, because she really misses him, and she feels guilty that she could have done more to make his life happier, but she can't, and now it's too late. So last night, when I was listening alone to wind and rain, so she's sitting there at home, and she's alone, and she can hear the wind and the rain, and she's feeling lonely. He took the chair beside me, himself come home again. So we don't know it yet, but somebody sits in the chair beside her. But this is her husband, who's she's imagining him there. It's like his ghost is there sitting beside her. His kind blue eyes were smiling. So his eyes were smiling. Beneath his thatch of grey, well, this is my thatch of grey. Thatch is actually the straw roof that you put on a house, but very often we talk about thatch, talking about the hair. So he was getting old. He laid his hand on my hand. He put his hand on my hand. The old sweetheartin way. The old way that sweethearts do. So he put his hand on my hand as if to say that he loved me. I pressed my cheek upon it, remembering bitterly the times he faced his daily toil without one smile from me. So I pressed my cheek upon his hand, and I bitterly remembered that the times that he went out to work and I wasn't nice to him. I wasn't smiling at him. I wasn't making things easier for him. I was angry with him for one reason or another. And she regrets this now. She wishes she hadn't, because she remembers it bitterly, and she's rebuking herself. And yet his meals were always good, his clothes well kept and clean. So she always fed him well, she always cooked well, and his clothes were always well looked after and clean. The neighbours sure will tell you the splendid wife I've been. So she carried out all of the duties that she considers a wife should do. In those days, remember, this is probably the 1900s, and society viewed marriage very differently in those days. But she said, I was a good wife. I did my work well. But in life's stresses and struggle, we somehow grew apart. So with the difficulties of life, with the problems of life, we grew apart. We became less loving. And she's regretting this. You know, these Irish mothers, 'tis the childer has their heart. And you know, she says, you know what Irish mothers are like. It's the children who are the person that the mother really loves. Yeah, and Irish mothers love their children. And he grew grim and close-lipped. So he grew depressed, and he didn't say anything. And harder day by day. He became harder as each day went past. Poor man. Too tired for laughter. So obviously he worked very hard to look after the family. Too worried to be gay, to be happy. But how his care enclosed us, for all he was so grim. So maybe he was grim and depressed and serious, but he looked after us. His care wrapped around us, it enclosed us, he kept us safe. The very rafters, the ceilings of our home, the roof of the home, were cut and laid by him. So he made the house that she is now sitting in. And I, that might have cheered him, the bitter words I said, and I feel bad, I could have made him happier. I said bitter, angry words to him. Oh God, that we remember only when they are dead. And she says, it's so sad that we remember this, but only after the person has died. That this is something that we regret and we think about, but only when it's too late. But now my arms were round him. The room seemed full of flowers. And now she is hugging him. And the room, it seems to be full of flowers. And youth came back and sunshine. That glorious time was ours. And suddenly she's young again, and they're both young again, and she's remembering their youth and the wonderful time when they were first in love and they were first together. The firelight flamed and flickered. The embers fell apart. So time went on. The fire continued to burn. The fire burnt down because the embers fall apart as time goes on. I woke to empty silence with sorrow at my heart. So she fell asleep. And then when she woke up, she felt very sad because she realized that he wasn't there. The wild winds brought the morning. So strong winds came with the morning. The dawn was red and chill. So there was a red dawn and it was cold. And himself was lying sleeping in the graveyard on the hill. And he was still in the graveyard on the hill. So he was dead. So enough. If you enjoyed the video, give it a rating, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you soon. Bye for now. Himself by Guerin Crist.